Do you feel like you were born for something bigger, but something always seems to pull you down? There are people who simply won't get there. Not for lack of ability, but for insisting on invisible patterns that sabotage one's own spiritual ascension. And the scariest thing? They don't even realize it. They live trapped in the illusion of separation, carrying an ego disguised as logic, in a cycle of resistance to change that seems like comfort, but is prison. While some awaken and access an expanded reality, where time is flexible and intuition is a compass, others remain slaves to the fear of loneliness, material attachment, and suffocating rationality. They think they are down to earth, but they have their soul in the basement. In this video, you will understand why many are stuck in the third dimension. And, most importantly, you will find out if you are one of the few who are ready to break through spiritual blockages and live in full presence, with energetic sovereignty and high consciousness. But before pressing play, answer honestly, are you prepared to give up everything you think you know about yourself? It is said that the fifth dimension is not reached with the feet, but with the soul. It's like changing the channel of the mind, from a heavy news broadcast to a light symphony that only plays when consciousness rises. In this new vibrational frequency, scarcity ceases to command the game and the fear of loneliness becomes only a distant whisper. It's no longer about running out of time, but about being so present that time seems to stop. One becomes the creator of one's own expanded reality, not by magic, but by inner clarity. Living in the fifth dimension is like stepping out of the illusion of separation and reconnecting with the energetic sovereignty that has always been there, only dormant. Have you noticed how some seem to live in peace even in chaos? They are not lucky, they are awakened. They are aligned with intuition, attentive to internal signals, aware that external reality is only a reflection of what pulsates inside. And no, it's not esoteric talk, it's about taking vibrational responsibility for everything you attract. This elevated consciousness does not arise overnight, of course. It springs up when the ego quiets down and self-knowledge deepens. A good exercise? Start by observing your own judgments, they are maps of your spiritual blocks. When you realize that every crisis is an invitation to transformation, the energy changes. And by allowing yourself to feel unfiltered, the first step towards spiritual ascension is born. But here comes the first barrier. When we talk about spiritual ascension, many people imagine something magical, mystical, out of human reach. But the truth is that the biggest enemies are within: resistance to change, material attachment, fear of loneliness, ignoring internal cues, and clinging to blind logic. These 5 spiritual blocks don't scream, they whisper. They are in repetitive habits, in excuses that seem reasonable, in attachment disguised as stability. And if they are not seen, they keep us trapped in the third dimension. It's like trying to fly with anchors on your feet. The energy of the fifth dimension does not match the weight of the ego and the illusions that the mind creates to protect itself. For example, how many times have you ignored a clear intuition just because it didn't make sense? Or have you clung to an exhausting routine for fear of the new? These patterns seem small, but they form internal walls that prevent real transformation. Those who want to transcend must first have the courage to face their own reflections. Each block is an invitation to self-knowledge, a chance to raise the vibrational frequency. A good practical exercise is to write about your fears and identify where each of these 5 blocks appears in your daily life. When this truth comes to light, there is no turning back. You begin to hear the inner signals, and little by little, reality begins to change. But then, between one step and another, the first obstacle reveals itself strongly. The resistance to change. She's sneaky. It disguises itself as prudence. I'll wait a little longer, it's not the time. But in fact, it's the ego afraid of losing control. And this fear creates a prison where the person gets used to discomfort and rejects any invitation to transformation. The energy of the fifth dimension requires movement, fluidity, and this does not combine with stagnation disguised as security. Think of a person who refuses to leave a job that no longer makes sense, just because they are afraid of not finding another one. Or someone who sabotages themselves in a healthy relationship because they are used to pain. This is resistance to change in action. The fear of loneliness screams, material attachment is secure, and spiritual awakening is being postponed. But crises, the same ones we fear so much, are masters in disguise. They come to tear out the rugs that hide the spiritual blockages. Those who want to live in an expanded reality need to change the "why is this happening to me" for "why is this happening now?" A good start is to practice letting go of small controls, changing the route to work, making room in the agenda for something new, listening to intuition even without guarantees. Gradually, the elevated consciousness replaces fear with the impulse to fly. And on this flight, another type of attachment begins to weigh down. Many people don't even realize it, but they build their entire identity based on what they have, and not on who they are. Car of the year, designer clothes, state-of-the-art cell phone. All of this becomes a shield. The problem? In the fifth dimension, these armors are of no use. Higher consciousness dissolves material attachment, not out of contempt for comfort, but out of energetic freedom. When personal value depends on external value, energy sovereignty goes down the drain. Want to see a classic example? Someone loses a position or an asset and feels that he has lost his own existence. This happens because the ego is confused with possession. But spiritual ascension requires detachment, not from matter itself, but from the need for validation by it. An authentic person can live well with a lot or a little, because their vibrational frequency does not depend on the bank balance. That's it. That's real power. Practicing detachment can start with small gestures, donating clothes you don't wear, reducing impulse consumption, observing what you are buying to fill internal voids. It's not about becoming a monk, it's about becoming free. Because when material attachment falls, there is room for intuition to flourish, and presence becomes full. And then, when silence comes the most avoided fear of all. Most people run away from loneliness as if it were a punishment, but really, it is an invitation. Silence is frightening because it reveals what the noise hides. But it is precisely in stillness that internal signals gain volume, that intuition flourishes, that self-knowledge deepens. In the fifth dimension, there is no room for need-based relationships, only for authentic connections. And this begins when the person supports himself emotionally alone. Avoiding being alone is one of the most camouflaged spiritual blocks. The addiction to social networks, the excess of commitments, the messages sent just to not feel the emptiness, all this masks the fear of presence. A good exercise? Spending an hour a day disconnected from everything, no cell phone, no distractions, just you with you. At first it's uncomfortable, but then the energy changes. And when it changes, spiritual awakening accelerates. The great truth is that, without solitude, there is no energy sovereignty. And it's not about becoming a hermit, but about learning to listen to yourself before waiting for answers from the world. When this listening is activated, even the oldest blocks begin to dissolve. Because what comes from within is always purer, clearer, more true. Only. There are people who simply don't want to listen. You know that feeling of, something told me not to go? Well, this something is real, and it's called intuition. Most ignore it, because we have been taught to trust logic more than our own inner wisdom. But the internal signals don't scream, they whisper. And if you don't listen, life increases the volume through crises, diseases, toxic relationships. To disconnect from this is to disconnect from your own spiritual compass. The body talks all the time, a pain that comes out of nowhere, a tiredness that doesn't go away, an anxiety for no clear reason. These are all vibrational messages. Those who live in expanded reality learn to decode these messages and take action before chaos arrives. A useful practice. Guided meditation focused on body scanning, like those of Tara Brach or Joe Dispenza. This helps to calibrate the vibrational frequency and resume presence. Ignoring these signs is like trying to drive with GPS off in an unfamiliar city. Can you walk? Gives. But he will get lost, he will go around, he will get frustrated. When the person begins to listen to what they feel, the transformation happens from the inside out. But for that, she needs to give up something that the mind loves, extreme rationalism. It has to be realistic. How many times have you heard this as a way to cut a dream, a vision, or a more subtle perception? Realism, when taken to the extreme, becomes an invisible prison, one where only what can be proved, measured, controlled enters. But the fifth dimension does not obey the linear logic of the third. It moves in the vibrational frequency of intuition, of synchronicity, of what science has not yet understood, but the heart already knows. The convinced skeptic lives like someone who tries to tune in to an old radio. He turns and turns, but he never finds the station because he does not believe it exists. Spiritual awakening requires more than data, it requires courage to feel what cannot be explained. How many times have you had a gut feeling that was confirmed, but ignored because it was not rational? That's the ego afraid of losing the throne. But energy sovereignty does not fit in a laboratory. It is not a matter of rejecting reason, but of not letting it become a dictator. A good start. Read authors such as Eckhart Tolle, Greg Braden, or Anita Moorjani. They show how it is possible to integrate science and spirituality with authenticity. Realism narrows the vision, self-knowledge expands it. And it is in this expansion that the transformation begins, but only for those who practice, not only for those who understand. The truth is that it's no use just understanding the concepts, watching videos, or filling the feed with phrases about spiritual awakening. Without practice, there is no transformation. High consciousness requires action, even if small, even if uncomfortable. It's like wanting a healthy body without getting out of bed. The fifth dimension responds to vibrational frequency, and that frequency changes when you apply what you have learned, with presence and intention. Want a real example? Meditating for 10 minutes every day already changes your energy. Replacing a judgment with active listening, or a boost of control with a gesture of trust, already reprograms patterns. Conscious practice is daily, almost invisible, but very powerful. And when done authentically, it begins to dissolve spiritual blockages that seemed insurmountable. Transformation, then, ceases to be a beautiful idea and becomes a new way of existing. Don't wait to feel ready, start now, however you can. Read, write, take a deep breath before reacting, observe your thoughts, feel your internal signals. It is this constant inner movement that takes you out of the illusion of separation and anchors you in expanded reality. And the more you practice, the more you realize that you are not alone. If you've made it this far, you're no longer the same person who started this video. The words touched where reason does not reach, deep down, where its truth lives. Now tell me, are you going to keep ignoring the internal signals? You will continue to be trapped in resistance to change, in material attachment, in the fear of loneliness. Or will you finally take the reins of your vibrational frequency? The world is changing, but only those who wake up can really see it. How many more cycles do you need to repeat until you decide to break this pattern? How many days will you let pass before you access the expanded reality that is literally within reach of your consciousness? The choice is yours, it always has been. If this content moved you in any way, comment below what caught you the most. I want to know where you are on this journey. And of course, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and come walk with me in this process of spiritual ascension. Because the fifth dimension is not a destiny, it is a state of being.